I didn't change my morning coffee. I just started putting one more thing in the cup. I'm 83 years old, and it's the honest answer to a question I get asked more than almost anything else. What actually changed? Researchers studying flow-mediated dilation, how well blood vessels actually open, have measured real improvement within hours of one specific compound found in an ordinary kitchen ingredient. At 50, I assumed I had decades of this ahead of me. By 70, that confidence had quietly drained out, one disappointing night at a time. You probably know that feeling, the slow decline that doesn't announce itself with one bad night, but with 100 small ones. That one compound is what pulled me out of it. In a minute, I'll tell you exactly what it is and how it ended up in my coffee cup. What eventually pulled me out of that was understanding something nobody had ever explained. An erection depends on three systems working together: the hormonal side, the nervous system signal, and blood flow, governed by a molecule called nitric oxide that tells your arteries to relax and let blood in. That third piece, blood flow, is the one that quietly weakens first for most men, tied directly to the health of the lining of your blood vessels, something researchers call the endothelium. For decades, I only ever heard about the first piece, the hormone. Every conversation I'd ever had, every article I'd ever skimmed, pointed at testosterone as though it were the whole story. It never occurred to me that the actual plumbing, the blood vessels themselves, might be the part quietly failing while everyone kept talking about hormones. These days I have more real energy at 83 than I honestly remember having back in my 60s. I've started taking the stairs at my son's 3-story house instead of waiting for someone to bring things down to me, and I don't think twice about it anymore. I'm not telling you that to brag. I'm telling you because I genuinely didn't expect any of this to be reversible at my age. Here's the part that reframed everything for me. The blood vessels feeding this particular part of the body are some of the smallest in your entire circulatory system, smaller than the ones feeding your heart. So circulation problems tend to show up here first, before anywhere else in the body. Researchers who study this treat it as a meaningful early signal, worth bringing straight to your doctor rather than quietly managing alone for years. For 3 years, I slept 3 feet away from my wife, and it felt like 300 miles. She'd fall asleep first. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, wide awake, feeling like a roommate in my own marriage. I thought something was wrong with me. It wasn't weakness, and it wasn't just age. Here's what no one ever sits a man down to explain. This isn't about willpower. It's about specific systems in your body quietly losing steam year after year while nobody tells you it's even happening. The pills my doctor handed me gave me headaches, made my chest feel tight, and honestly, they made me feel like I needed a pill just to feel like a man. I wasn't willing to live like that. There's a gentler way to bring those systems back, without any of that. At 83, my wife and I aren't roommates anymore. I'll show you exactly what changed it in this video. And if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. So here's what I actually started doing, and I promise it's exactly as simple as it sounds. Adding a spoonful of real, unsweetened dark cocoa powder, the kind rich in flavonols, not the sugary hot chocolate mix from a packet, right into my morning coffee. There's a solid body of research on cocoa flavonols and what's called endothelial function, basically how well the lining of your blood vessels relaxes and lets blood through. Researchers have measured improved blood flow within hours of consuming flavanol-rich cocoa, and populations with traditionally high cocoa intake, like certain communities in Central America, have been studied for decades for the cardiovascular patterns tied to it. Mixing it into coffee I was already drinking meant I didn't have to add some new ritual to my day. It just became part of something I was doing anyway, which is probably the real reason it stuck when so many other things hadn't. I'd tried plenty of other things over the years that required remembering, deciding, choosing to do them fresh every single day. Almost all of them fell apart within a couple of weeks. This one didn't, because there was nothing separate to remember. The coffee was already happening, rain or shine, every single morning of my life. I built the rest of a small system around it. Vegetables rich in dietary nitrate most days, beets, spinach, arugula, supporting nitric oxide from a different angle entirely. A short walk most mornings in real daylight, which regulates the internal clock that governs hormonal rhythm, separate from anything I was eating or drinking. Better sleep, since a good part of the hormonal piece of this actually rebuilds itself overnight, not during the day. Less alcohol, since it undoes a fair share of what the rest of this system is trying to accomplish, even in moderate amounts. Each of these pieces on its own would have been easy to dismiss as too small to matter. Together, sustained over weeks rather than days, they added up to something I actually noticed. Not a single dramatic turning point, but a gradual, steady shift in how I felt from one week to the next. None of these pieces alone would have done much. It was the combination, sustained for a couple of months before I noticed anything worth mentioning that actually mattered. I want to be honest that I nearly gave up around the 3-week mark, assuming I'd been wrong to expect anything different this time. I'm glad I kept going past that point, because the real shift happened closer to week 6 than week 1. My wife and I spent a weekend with old friends recently, and I was the one still up talking well past midnight, while 2 of the other men, both younger than me, had already called it a night. She teased me about it the whole drive home. I think about a man named Gerald who wrote in, 68, who told me he'd never once thought to connect what he ate to this part of his health, assuming it was purely a hormone issue he had no control over. He said adding one small thing to a routine he already had, instead of building something new from scratch, was the only reason he actually followed through with it. Gerald told me he'd started and abandoned more health routines than he could count over the years. Always the same pattern, enthusiastic for a week, then quietly back to old habits within a month. He said the difference this time was that there was no separate habit to abandon. He was just adding one ingredient to something he was doing regardless. If you're on medication for blood pressure or your heart, please hear this clearly. Nothing here replaces your treatment, and you should never stop or change a medication on your own. Mention anything new to your doctor every single time, no matter how minor it seems. What I want you to walk away with is this. At 50, I never once thought about supporting my circulation directly. At 83, it's the reason things work better now than they did back then. That's a strange thing to say out loud, and I know it, but it's also just physiology. The body doesn't care what number is on your birth certificate. It cares whether the systems that keep it running are being supported or neglected. And for most of my adult life, one of those systems was quietly neglected without me ever knowing it existed. Your erections don't disappear just because you got older. They fade when the systems behind them, blood flow, nitric oxide, hormones, energy, and recovery, slowly stop getting the support they need. Ignore that long enough, and it becomes harder to reverse. That's why I take this concentrated formula every morning. Not one ingredient trying to fix everything, but several working together to support circulation, energy, and drive from the inside out. It's a natural, doctor-backed protocol designed to support pathways your body already knows how to use. No prescription, nothing artificial. Stronger, present, confident again. And unlike the pills I tried, I didn't feel disconnected from my own body. No headaches, just steady, gradual change. My wife noticed before I even said a word. The presentation is linked right below this video. It won't replace your doctor or a healthy lifestyle. It's simply there to support your body. At 83, my wife and I aren't roommates anymore, and it's not too late for you. I think about the man I was, quietly accepting decline as the price of getting older. And I think about the man I am now, who found something this small worth doing every single morning. That's not vanity, that's dignity. Still being in command of your own body instead of just watching it slip away. I don't think about the man I was with any bitterness anymore, honestly. He was doing the best he could with the information he had, which was mostly nothing, mostly silence, mostly a vague sense that decline was just something you were supposed to accept quietly and without complaint. If you've ever assumed decline only moves one direction, tell me about it in the comments below. I'd genuinely like to know how many of us believed that exact same thing. And if this kind of thing is useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. There's more of this ahead every single week, and I read every comment myself.